One of the best things about this job that I love is that I get to call on my friends. I call on people and say, hey, why don't you come on the show and talk with me about whatever your subject is. Well, my friend today is Mike Blattman. Mike, I met, I've done news here for 25 years. You were working at KPD 25 years ago, weren't you?
Yes, I have been. It's one of those things you kind of go like, oh, how long has it been? Yeah.
So we fought back and forth between police and news over the years.
Yeah.
Didn't always agree. But we also had a wonderful time together when our sons played baseball. Man, such great stuff.
It was good times. Very good times.
Very good. But today you're here to talk about popular scams. Mike is a crime prevention specialist with Kennewick PD. And you know, when I called you, you were just more than willing because scams hurt people. Man, they take away their money.
Yeah, and it's one of the more popular, I hate to say popular, but it's one of the more common reports that officers take on a daily basis. There seems to be no lack of ingenuity from people that want to take advantage of other people, and through the use of internet, text messaging, and all the other technologies that are available now, it's increased. I mean, it used to be you'd get faxes, and that limited the number of people that could be the victims of scams. Now with cell phones, internet, Craigslist, all these different things, there's so many avenues that are available to scammers.
Oh, you know, and I am often amazed. You're talking about ingenuity. I am amazed at how smart criminals are.
Well, you know, the technology is today that it's very easy for people to disguise phone numbers. So if you go down the list of what I call my top 9 types of scams, a lot of them are based on the fact that people, they suspend reality. In some of these circumstances, there are a group of scams and frauds where people suspend reality. Those are the types of scams where people believe they won something, or they are asked to suspend reality by believing something that they know is not true, but they really want it to be true. So, as we go through this list, you'll see some of these things that just, if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's a central theme I need to think about. So, what's number 1 on your list of 9?
Well, right now, it started to slow down a little bit. The thing that was very popular since the beginning of the year is the IRS frauds. Whether they be somebody who was falsifying an income tax return, or somebody was claiming somebody else's social security number and filing a tax return. But on a daily basis, we were seeing 4 or 5 reports just in Kennewick where people were filing their returns online, only to find out that somebody else had already filed their returns. Now, understand that when we first started seeing this was before the IRS admitted that they had a horrendous hack into their system, and that people were taking their social security numbers and they were filing false returns. So I even had, this was last year, the previous tax return, my niece over on the west side of the state, her and her husband were filing their income tax return. First time they'd filed it together, and they ended up in about a 9-month long dilemma where they were trying to file an income tax return with getting money back. But when they filed it, somebody else had already used their social security number, one of their social security numbers, and it claimed that. And it takes 6 to 9 months for it to be cleared up.
Oh,
but we have that happen on a regular basis. So that was probably the thing that for the first 4 or 5 months of this year was the most common type of scam. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about it.
Well, do you ever get your money back from the IRS?
In their case, they did. They were able to show that that was a fraud type of situation. So they did finally get their return back. But it is one of those things that it takes time to process through. And then if you're talking about, you know, the IRS finally said, yeah, we were hacked, there were, you know, hundreds of thousands of people that were out there potentially could be victims. So we were seeing that on a regular basis where people were filing tax returns online and getting notices back from the IRS. We already have that tax return processed. So that's a big problem.
Okay, so, but Mike, that's one where I can't really prevent that. I don't have anything to do with that. Nobody calls me and asks me a question, sucks me in. They just use my social security number.
So when people ask me now, it used to be that, you know, people would ask me, they would say, how do I protect my identity? And I would give them a list of 4 or 5 things. And now I tell them, there's nothing you can do. And truly, there's very little you can do to protect your identity at this point. Because if you look at the major types of scams and frauds that involve identity theft, there's little you can do. So I can tell you that a year ago, I was the victim of identity theft 4 times in about a 6-month period. And all of them involved credit cards or debit cards from financial institutions or being used at different places where there was nothing I could do. I went to Yokes, I ended up on their list.
Yeah.
Went to Target, ended up on their list.
Oh man.
Went to a local establishment, eating establishment here, used my debit card for lunch. 2 hours later, it was used in California at a convenience store. So you look at those types of things, there's absolutely nothing you can do as an individual that will keep you from being the victim of that type of identity theft. Mm-hmm. That being said, I still encourage people to take those common sense things and use them to keep from being further victims. So things like protecting your PIN numbers, not, people remembering to sign their debit cards and their credit cards, because you need to sign those. Just putting on the back of it to see my ID doesn't work, because not everybody's going to ask it, and not only that, you make it easier for somebody to be able to forge your signature. So there's still those little things you can do, but trying to, we as individuals have very little we can do to protect ourselves from data breaches, and we hear about them constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's difficult. I always thank clerks when they ask for ID to back up my credit card.
Absolutely, and
yes.
One of the biggest one, and again, got to notice, the healthcare industry. Because that has the potential for even being more, a bigger financial loss when people are using your medical records and filing claims for them. And
yes.
That's why when you hear about the things like the insurance companies that have had breaches, those are even scarier.
Hmm.
So from identity theft, there's a little bit you can do. Protects your PIN numbers, protects your identity, not letting people see when you punch in your numbers. But the vast majority of those data breaches where they're making the most money now are those types of circumstances there where they're getting data information through data breaches.
All right, let's go to number 2.
Sure. Okay. So the most frequent thing, the next most frequent thing we have are the phone call thing. For example, somebody calling in. I know both Franklin and Benton County PUD have had this experience. It's an ongoing thing where somebody calls up and says, "Hey, you're past due. We're going to shut off your phone. We're going to shut off your electricity. You need to make a payment now." So those types of circumstances where people are asking, for immediate payment. The key there is that none of the local PUDs or electric utilities are going to do that. They're not going to call up and tell you need to pay it now. The key to those things too is usually they're asking you to make an immediate transaction. So they want you to go someplace and wire money to them, or they want you to go get what they call a green dot card, which is basically a cash card. You go and purchase at a local business. You load money onto it, then you call the person back and tell them, okay, here's the card. They give you you tell them what the card number is and the PIN number, and somebody at the other end can take that money immediately out of that card without actually having it in their hands. So look for those types of things. The other things that you can see with those, the PUD uses those. Somebody will imply that they're with the PUD.
Yeah.
I've seen people that have done the same thing, saying that they are with, for example, there might be a warrant for your arrest because you failed to show up for jury duty. That's another one too that we've had, a frequent one that we've had around here as well too. And there's also, remember, there's so many different variations of these things. And some people will just sit there and they'll go like, I don't remember if I got a jury duty notice, or maybe went to a different address. And that person at the other end is going to, give the impression that they are an official. We've had conversations, or we've had circumstances where people will get those phone calls. An officer will call back the phone number, not to say who they are, and will say, I'm calling, and I'm returning your phone call. What's going on? And they will say, I'm Detective so and so, or I'm Sergeant so and so, or Lieutenant so and so with, whatever law enforcement agency. And this is what you need to do, or we're going to have deputies or officers on their way to arrest you. It's not going to happen. But the person at the other end is going like they're wondering if it is. So they will follow those instructions. We've had circumstances where the bad guys will actually stay on the phone with the person while they drive to the store and pick up the green dot cards, or will tell them what to do going to a Western Union location.
Okay, so right
money.
there, the trigger is the green dot card or wiring money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are the two major things. If they want the money right now and they have to have it. So those are things that you look at as far as jury duty scams, or different things of that nature, where it's an official calling and saying that they need some money.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's take a break right here. We are only on number 2, and we're going to go to number 9. So look at how creative criminals are in trying to get your money. We want to give you some information, so hopefully that's not going to happen to you or your parents. This is Meet in the Middle. I'm Christine Brown. All right, well, we know that there are 2 accidents on the Blue Bridge right now. One lane is open, so it's a real slowdown there, and if you want to move over and take the cable bridge, that probably would be a smart idea right now. In studio with me, Mike Blattman, crime prevention specialist with Kennewick PD. We are going down a list of what Mike considers his top 9 types of scams, and we're on number 3.
So let's talk about Craigslist.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess it serves a purpose, and what it serves a major purpose for is scammers, con artists, thieves, crooks. So there are so many different types of scams that are perpetuated on Craigslist. I usually tell people, if you see it on Craigslist, it's not true. Okay,
you tell them that.
I tell them that.
We were almost the victims of that. We
Well,
were trying to sell some wheels off my wife's car.
Yeah.
She bought a new car, and this guy texted me and everything, and they even sent us a check. And I said, well, you come by the station and you give me cash, and then we'll do the exchange. I was very
yeah.
careful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We took it to the bank, and someone was trying to defraud some bank in New York.
So that really
yeah.
is the basic scam that takes place, because if you were trying to sell something on Craigslist, I guarantee you within probably an hour after you post it, you will get you'll get an email from somebody that will be telling you that, hey, I'm very interested in this item. I don't care what it is. It could be a set of tires.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a car. It could be, whatever it is. But what will end up happening is somebody will tell you, yeah, I'm very interested. Then you have to ask yourself, why is a person in Oklahoma looking for a set of tires that you have for sale? Because that's what will happen. And then they'll tell you, yeah, I'm willing to do that. I'm going to send you a check. So the next thing that will happen is that you will get a check. More times than not, it will not come through the Postal Service, because if they send it through the Postal Service, there's the possibility of mail fraud. So they'll send it by UPS or FedEx, something of that nature. You will get this check, and you will have an agreed upon price. Say it's whatever the item is. You've agreed on the price of $500. You will get a check that will be for $1,795.27. And you'll go like, why did I get this check? Then you're going to start typing back to the person going like, hey, I received this check, and why is it for so much more? And they will tell you, yeah, I'm sorry, my secretary messed up, or somebody messed up. Some of that money is for actually paying for transporting the items. So they'll tell you, go ahead, take it to the bank, cash it, take out your $150 or $500 or whatever it is, and then I'm going to have somebody that's going to show up and they will collect the money from you. Or would you then, that's one way they'll do it. Another way they'll tell you that, okay, would you just go get a money order and send it back to us?
Oh,
or will you just wire it back to us? So you take the check to the bank. Not only that, the check itself will be counterfeit. So what will happen is that you'll take it to the bank, you'll cash it, the bank will give you that money. You will then 3 days later get a notice from the bank telling you, please come in with the full amount of the check because the check was no good. You will by that time have sent the money off to the thief, and now you're stuck with this check for $1,700 and some odd, and you're paying the bank back because it was a counterfeit check. When you see those things, and not only that, there's so many obvious signs on the checks that tell you that there's something wrong with it. First of all, it'll usually be from a business, and it'll make no sense why you have this business check from so-and-so that's in an entirely different state from where you just sold the item. So I always tell everybody, if you're going to sell something on Craigslist, just like you were saying before, if you want to meet face-to-face, you want to give me cash, that's fine. There's some security risks there too, but you're less likely to be the victim of a scam. So whenever you have those types of things, when you're selling something, you want to be very careful. You want to make sure that you understand what's going on. Some financial institutions, they'll automatically take a look at that and they'll go like, yeah, we're going to hold the check.
Yeah.
Some of those places now will, they will just tell you you can't get the money out for 3 days or however long it's going to be. And when they process that check through, they'll tell you it's not any good. Some of the banks, financial institutions will go like, you already know it's no good. So they'll have different routing numbers from different names or whatever it is. So Craigslist sales, forget about it. It's really not worth the effort. Craigslist rentals. Another gun. Somebody puts on the on Craigslist that they have this 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Matter of fact, my youngest son, our sons played baseball together, so he's looking for they're looking for a house to rent, him and a couple of his roommates. And I tell him, do not use Craigslist, whatever you do. So, he goes, well, I want to go and check. He goes, I saw this one here, and he shows it to me. It's 3-bedroom, 2 baths. It's in Kennewick. It's in South Kennewick. And it's like, I'm going like, and the rent is $1,200 a month. They said, man, it's not going to work, okay? That's not what's going to happen. And he goes, well, we're going to check it out anyway. So him and one of his buddies, they contact this person, and sure enough, what they had done is that the house was actually for sale. Somebody pulled the image off of the MLS listing and then just put it out there as it's being rented. And there was a story about how the house has been vacant for a while. They're out of the country. They're just looking for somebody to watch the house and take care of it, and that's why we're giving such a low rent. Here's the application. Fill it out. Send in your deposit, $850, whatever it is for the deposit.
Oh boy!
And so what ends up happening? They didn't do it. So, but they kind of played along with it a little bit. But people will do that. They'll see it's a great deal. Not realizing that the house is not for rent. It may not. In some instances, it might be for sale. They will send off a money order with doing an online application, and then they never hear anything back. The house is not for rent. The house may not be for sale. But again, anytime you have something like that on Craigslist, be very careful. Very careful. When somebody's telling you they spin a big story about, they're out of the country, they're trying to do those things, red flags. Pay attention to them, because again, that's a potential for scam, and we see that again over and over and over.
Yeah, I gotta pay attention.
Yeah,
that's what you're telling me. I've gotta think about what is being said.
Well, Lance Kenmore talked about that on the real estate show. He has seen that happen with his real estate firm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you post something on MLS, there's a really good chance that somebody's going to grab those images. There's no work to be done. Think about this. And it's why scams are so popular. There's very little work you have to do. You throw that net out there and you hope that 1 or 2 people a day falls for it. Well, think about that. If you get 2 or 3 people to send you $850 a day, you can make a living off of that. And so that's why people do it. It's very easy for them to do, and it's very difficult for us to be able to apprehend them.
Yeah.
So
and you're not getting the money back.
No,
over.
It's gone. So Craigslist listing rentals, and the last thing we'll pick on Craigslist about is employment opportunities. So people will post on there, that they are looking for somebody to. The one I always think is really good is that we need somebody to handle our orders and process our payments for our company, because we are located and we're selling cheese from the United Kingdom, and we have clients that are here in the U.S., and we need somebody to process those orders, cash those checks, those money orders, and then forward the information to us. So my first reaction is, okay, have you heard of a bank? Banks do that.
Okay, yeah.
So why do you need to have somebody that's going to process those financial transactions and then transfer it into a money order and then forward it on to them? And what ends up happening is somebody will go like, well, this is an easy at-home job, I can do this. So they start getting, again, in a UPS or FedEx package, they'll get a series of money orders for different amounts, and they'll be told, deposit these, then forward the money on to us, take out your salary, and that's it. And then what happens is you take those into the financial institution. Those money orders are filed, and checks are all counterfeit. So now you've deposited several $1,000s into an account that you have, and now you are sending that. By the way, it sounds an awful lot like money laundering. So it doesn't make any sense. So people suspend reality because they want to have this stay-at-home job, they want to make some money. And they suspend reality. If
and
it's
it seems
too
like
good to
easy
be true.
money.
Oh, absolutely.
Easy money.
So you'll have that. You'll have those types of things. I'm looking for a babysitter, whatever it is. So employment opportunities on Craigslist, not so much. There's an awful lot of of online employment locations where you can have better success in actually getting a job.
Yeah. All right. We've got it. We went through Craigslist. We went sales, employment, and rentals.
Yes.
So mark those off the list. We're going to take a break right here. We'll be back to continue going through this list of how you can get scammed. Stick around. All right. Mike Blattman is my guest. He's a crime prevention specialist with Kennewick PD. What is another scam that people can get caught in?
Well, one that's particularly targeted to a segment of our society is called the Grandparent Scam. So it's a circumstance where people will receive phone calls, and the perception is when the person receives the phone call, they believe that it's a grandson or granddaughter that's calling them and asking for help. And a lot of times when I've talked to people that they've received this call, they'll go like, well, they knew my grandson or granddaughter's name, and they really don't. What happens is that the person will call up and start talking, and for a moment or two you're kind of wondering, well, if you're the victim, you're going like, well, who is this? And you go like, is this John, or is this Dave, or is this Sue, or whatever it is? And they'll go like, yeah, Grandma, Grandpa, it is. I need your help. And what they'll do is they'll spin a tale about they're down in Mexico or up in Canada, or they're down in the Caribbean, and they're on vacation and they kind of got in trouble, and they need some money to be able to bail out because the cops are here, and please don't call Mom and Dad. I don't want to be embarrassed or anything like that. Could you help me out? And they'll go like, well, sure. I want to make sure you're okay. So in most instances, the next thing you hear is somebody coming on the phone identifying themselves as a constable or an officer or something of that nature, and they will tell you that they got a little bit of trouble, and
so it's a
they were
two-person
drinking.
scam
Oh, absolutely.
there. Yeah, two-person. Yeah. Okay.
So they'll get on the phone and they'll identify themselves as being a local law enforcement, and they'll tell them that this is what we need. His bail is $1,500, or $500, or whatever the amount is, and then they'll go like, are you able to help post that bail? And you're kind of going like, well, yeah, I can help you out. Okay. So the next clue is most law enforcement agencies are not going to ask you to use a green dot card. They're not going to ask you to wire the money to a particular location someplace else. If you need to bail a kid out, they're probably going to have to post bail through a bail bondsman. But again, people are trying to be helpful. They want to make sure that their grandparent or their grandchildren are okay. All scams. So one of the things that I've had the delight of one particular lady who calls me on a regular basis, and she was a victim of scams several years ago. And important thing to remember, if you are the victim of a scam, your likelihood of being the victim in the future is greatly increased because the bad guys share that information.
Oh.
If I got money out of Mary Beth, I'm telling other people, and I'm going to work her again later on. So that once you're the victim, you're going to get targeted a lot more often. So in this particular instance, this one particular lady, she was smart enough not to fall victim of the scam. She knew that her kids, her grandkids, were safe. And this particular woman, the child that was supposedly in trouble was a deputy prosecutor with the Yakima County Prosecutor's Office, and she knew he was at work. So she didn't fall for it. But a lot of times people
do fall for it.
People will fall for it.
Boy.
And I saw a case report we had just a couple of weeks ago. It was something in the area of almost $4,000 that this gentleman wired down to Jamaica.
Yeah.
So again, the grandparent scam is still alive. It's still out there. Ask questions. And go from there.
So the smart thing to do, though, is to talk to your parents about it. Tell them this is a scam. Don't fall for it. Don't be making any crazy financial decisions like that. Tell me first.
Yeah. Or the other thing is, hey, you got yourself in trouble. Get yourself out. Goodbye.
There you go. Well,
that's always been my philosophy.
That's good tough love, isn't it? All right, what else you got?
Okay, grandparents, sweepstakes, and lotteries. Wow.
Yeah.
Where do I start on these? And these can go anywhere. You can get emails online. You can get letters. You can get phone calls. They're all there. And there's different variations of this. The first and most important thing is if you didn't buy a lottery ticket, you can't win. You know, how can you possibly win a sweepstakes or a lottery if you have never purchased a ticket?
Yeah, but I'm suspending reality.
Well, there you go. There's no such thing as a
Yes.
free lunch. So you get a notice from somebody telling you that you've won the Australian travel lottery or whatever it is. The key to all of these things is they're going to ask for money up front. So if you are the victim and somebody calls and they say, well, we need $1,500, we're going to send you a check for, you've won $500,000. We're going to send you a check for $2,500. We want you to cash that check, keep your first initial deposit, and then we want you to send back $750 of that. There's nobody in the world's going to do that. Even if you win the Mega Millions or the lottery, Washington State Lotto, they're going to take it out of your winnings, and they're going to, they're not going to ask you to mail something back. So, again, those are just great signs, because again, they're going to send you a money order or a check or something of that nature that's going to be counterfeit, and they're going to ask you to send the money back. There have been scams where when people actually acknowledge that, they'll get phone calls from people that represent themselves as being with Homeland Security, saying that there is a surcharge for security, an enhanced security type of attacks, or the IRS is calling you, and they'll identify themselves. They're not hesitant to say, this is Officer so-and-so, and you go like, well, can I get your badge number? And they'll make up a number.
Yeah.
And people will go, well, he sounded like an officer,
Yes.
and he gave me his badge number. Well, they're lying to you. So again, you can't win if you didn't buy a ticket. So if you get an email saying you've won, if you get a letter saying you've won, it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Hey, we don't have very much time
Okay.
left, but tell me about who are the best targets?
It used to be people say that seniors were the best targets. It's across the board. I'd say more seniors and then more younger people. It's at both ends. They're targeted differently, but those are the ones that are primarily getting. The ones that are actually physical scams.
Yeah.
So.
Mike Blattman. Boy, if people have questions, I suggest that you call Mike Blattman at the Kennewick PD and talk more. Always, always, always talk to other people. Don't do anything in secret. That's what they that's what they depend on, don't they?
Absolutely.
They depend on secrecy. Don't do it. Don't fall for it. All right, we're back to wrap up today's program in just a moment.